The artistic dream of its founders, to create a theater of excellence concentrating primarily on themes of black life, is a reality. The Negro Ensemble Company boasts a total of more than 40 major theater awards. It has produced over 200 new plays. More than 4,000 men and women in all areas of theater arts have passed through its doors, including most of the best and best-known black actors in television and film. And a legacy of theater literature, black in subject but universal in appeal, is being fashioned for future generations.
American Masters is made possible by a major grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. With additional funding from this station and other public television stations, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Rosalind P. Walter, and the Marilyn M. Simpson Charitable Trust.
Good evening. Despite the fact that millions of you wonderful people throughout the nation are viewing and listening to this momentous broadcast, and I thank you for your concern and sympathy in this hour of our peril, I primarily want to concentrate my attention and address these remarks solely for the benefit of our departed Negro friends who may be listening somewheres in our far-flung land to the sound of my voice. If you are, it is with heartfelt emotion and fond memories of our happy association that I ask, where are you?
In the autumn of 1965, in the midst of the struggle for civil rights, a bitingly funny play called Day of Absence opened in New York City. Its enthusiastic reception led to the establishment of a professional black theater organization called the Negro Ensemble Company, or NEC.
When NEC started, there was no place for performers to go, and there was no work for them. There was no home. There were plays written, but there was no place for them to be mounted, nor anyone willing to produce them.
We were, for the most part, trained artists who never got a break except as some domestic.
It was important when we founded it 20 years ago because it created an outlet and opportunities for many, many talented people who would not have those outlets and opportunities.
By the same token, there was nothing we ever did that was such an instant sensation as the NEC.
The Negro Ensemble Company was founded in 1967 by actor-playwright Douglas Turner Ward, actor Robert Hooks, and theater manager Gerald Krone. Their goal was to create a theater of excellence, concentrating primarily on themes of black life. Their success is evidenced by 2 decades marked with Tony Awards and Obie Awards, 1 Pulitzer Prize, and proclamations of gratitude from over 15 American cities. By producing consistently imaginative and challenging plays, the NEC has nurtured some of the finest theatrical talent in America and has created an enduring body of black dramatic literature. While drawing primarily on Afro-American culture, energy, and talent, the NEC has illuminated the complexities and passions of all American life. The Negro Ensemble Company's first 20 years have been rich in struggle and accomplishment. The next 20 years are just beginning.
I think the NEC has, through its consistent work, really changed attitudes in a strange kind of way. They've raised the level of consciousness, really, in the United States with regard to what black people can do, who they can be, how they can perform, the kinds of things they can think. that I think is very important.
For black performers and black audiences, an institution like the Negro Ensemble Company was long overdue. For 300 years, there'd been almost no authentic reflection of black life in mainstream American culture. And real accomplishment by black theater artists had been viciously circumscribed by law and by social convention.
Young people nowadays can say, I want to be an actress, which I could not say. When I was a youngster, I was afraid and ashamed to admit that I wanted to be an actress, which I wanted to be. From the time I can remember, I never wanted to be anything but an actress, but I wouldn't dare tell my parents that I wanted to be an actress, because being an actress at that time meant Hattie McDaniels and Butterfly McQueen. I'm not denigrating.
Butterfly McQueen and Hattie McDaniel were forced to compromise their talent in the roles that made them famous. But, as McDaniel once remarked, better to earn $700 a week portraying a maid than be one for $7. For most black actors, however, getting any job was almost impossible.
I had been a disc jockey in Detroit. I had been whatever in radio. When I came to New York and started making the rounds, trying to do the shows, it was casually whispered to me that, you know, they're not going to use you despite the fact that your voice may not sound ethnic on radio. I said, why? I said, well, there are such things as sponsors. These shows go into the South. And if anyone knew that that was the voice of a black man in particular situations in the show, well, the reactions would be quite strong.
In the aftermath of World War II, these barriers became increasingly intolerable. Black soldiers were fighting for their country, but a black actor still could not be seen portraying a multidimensional character. Only the theater of left-wing political movements both preached and practiced artistic equality. And it was there that a young writer named Douglas Turner Ward created his first performance piece for a large political rally.
It was called The Star of Liberty and concerned the life of the rebel slave leader, Nat Turner. Well, the response to Star of Liberty at this rally was the thing that really set my course. Now I knew I definitely wanted to write creatively. I knew I wanted to write for the theater.
While Douglas Turner Ward was discovering his voice in the theater, the United States Supreme Court handed down its landmark 1954 decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, which held that segregated public education violated the Constitution. In the ensuing struggle, a young Southern minister named Martin Luther King conceived a strategy of nonviolent resistance that would take him from Montgomery to Selma and to Washington, D.C. Black theater was part of the struggle.
I think many people who might, during this period, have gone into other areas of the arts, perhaps, sort of clung to the notion that there was something possible in the theater. And in that sense, it was a very exciting time. Douglas Turner Ward was one of those people, Lonnie Elder, Robert Hooks.
Robert Hooks' acting career had gotten off the ground with a part opposite Douglas Turner Ward in the road tour of A Raisin in the Sun. Raisin, by Lorraine Hansberry, had won the New York Drama Critics Award for Best Play of 1959. It was the first Broadway play written by a black woman and the first to directly address the issue of civil rights from a black perspective. During the tour, Hooks and Ward became friends, and together they conceived an ambition to start a theater company run by and for black people. The first steps to make this dream a reality were taken during Hooks' triumph in Leroy Jones' scathing drama, Dutchman.
I was doing Dutchman at the Cherry Lane Theater downtown. I was living in Chelsea at the time. And on Monday nights, this is an actor's night off, I was asked to come and speak at the Chelsea, at the Hudson Gill in Chelsea, about blacks in theater and the problems thereof and all. And I went and I talked, and there were a lot of kids out there. And after the talk, it was well received, and the kids would come up and ask questions and all. And I lived right across the street, and I knew most of these young people. So I said, if you really and truly are interested in theater, come on over to my house Monday night. I'm off on Monday nights, and let's talk about it and see if we can work some things out, and maybe I'll spend some time working and teaching a little and workshops and all. And that's what happened.
We lived on 27th Street, and Bobby's apartment was on 28th Street. And in order to get to his apartment, we usually went through the playground. And there was a distraction in the playground. So you had a choice. You could either be distracted, or you could go to Bobby and explore the possibilities. And a lot of the kids decided to explore the possibilities there.
Robert Hooks dubbed his explorers the Group Theater Workshop. And to prove that the kids weren't wasting their time, he and his associate, Barbara and Tia, decided to produce an evening of their work for parents and friends, including a one-act play by Douglas Turner Ward. A New York Post critic got wind of the event. His excited review convinced Hooks he could produce Ward's plays commercially. Hooks raised the money, Ward provided the plays. Together they recruited an experienced theater manager named Gerald Krone. And on November 15th, 1965, an evening of satiric one-act plays opened at the St. Mark's Playhouse in Lower Manhattan.
I think satirical theater and a satirical approach even to life is extremely effective. I mean, instead of using the sledgehammer, Douglas Turner Ward used a, quote, switchblade, I guess you could call it. And you laughed, but if you shook your head, it rolled down the aisle every time.
It was satire with a vengeance, especially the play called Day of Absence. In the form of a reverse minstrel show, black actors in whiteface depicted the whites in a small southern town on a day when all the blacks mysteriously disappear.
I'm begging you, you got to come back. Look, George! I brought the rag you waxed the car with, George. Don't this bring back memories, George, of all the days you spent shining that automobile to shimmering perfection, huh? And you, Rufus? Rufus! Here's the shoe polish in the brush. Remember, Rufus? Remember all that happy morning you spent popping this rag and whisking this brush so furiously till it created music that was symphony to the ear? And you, Mandy, here's the waste basket you didn't dump this morning. I saved it just for you.
I visited Montgomery, Alabama during the bus boycott there. And every morning, the buses, although empty, drive along through their routes. And remember, this boycott lasted a year and 15 days. But the sight of those empty buses driving along as though they were full seemed so eerie and at the same time comical. Years later, when I sat down to write the play, I decided to carry that idea to its logical or illogical conclusion.
Day of Absence was both controversial and successful. It ran for 504 performances in New York and was broadcast nationally on PBS, though many southern stations refused to carry it. The play also won recognition for Ward, including the Drama Desk Award for Writing and an Obie Award for Acting. He was then invited by the New York Times to write an article on the condition of black artists in American theater. The article became a manifesto for the establishment of a black theater company.
Doug Ward's essay came out in the Times. I called him in. I had seen Happy Ending and Day of Absence. He brought in Robert Hooks, a black actor, and Gerald Krone, an off-Broadway white administrator who had been producing the double bill of Ward's plays at the St. Mark's. And we started talking.
Finally, he asked us, would you entertain drawing up a proposal? Then we said, hey, this is real. I mean, if we come up with something specific, they're going to seriously consider giving us this money. I mean, it hit us. Now, we have to talk about this.
We sat down at the Orchidea and had a couple of beers, and on the back of this napkin or envelope, we began to lay out what the NEC ought to be. The idea for the NEC was Doug's and Bobby's, really. And my role there was to concretize that, to bring it into something which was fundable and which had some real shape to it.
I had been for a while a guest at the Actors Studio, and I was doing a workshop there, and during a break, someone came over to me and handed me the Times and said, "Did you see this? You know anything about this?" And it was the announcement of NEC's beginning, and I went crazy. I screamed. I said, "I'm gonna work, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna work."
I remember Roz Cash just bubbling, just sitting up bubbling. And Eddie, this house, we got our own theater, you know?
It was high excitement. You were high every day, looking forward to it. And nobody had to say twice, it's time to go to work.
The Negro Ensemble Company was incorporated in April 1967. Its founders were determined to establish a complete theatrical institution as soon as possible.
The need for this had been there for so long, and there had been so much talk about theaters of this sort and about what they ought to be, that we decided that the very best thing that we could do would be to make this a concrete reality as quickly as possible, to get it going, not to spend a lot of time thinking and dealing and sorting out and a lot of administrative stuff. The thing was to do it, finally to do it.
A theater was found, the St. Mark's Playhouse, where Day of Absence had fared so well. The resident company was chosen. Directors and designers were engaged. Instructors were hired for the free actors, directors, and playwrights workshops, and a theatrical crafts apprenticeship program was set up. By September, it was all ready to go. The first play was to be The Song of the Lusitanian Bogey. Written by German playwright Peter Weiss, the play related in Weiss's highly theatrical manner the story of the Portuguese colonization of West Africa.
Diego come with his sailing fleet, came to the mouth of Congo's great brown stream. Found there a people of peaceable habits, freeborn workers of land and hunters of the forest. They already had tools made of iron and pots made of copper. They worked up carpets carved in gold and ivory, domesticized animals, cattle in pasture. Diego Cow and his people were pleased with it here where they were taken in and welcomed. And they made an exchange of gifts. Then they erected Nicabinda, the first of their forts.
That opening night was one of the most powerful evenings in theater I've ever experienced. It was just overwhelming. I mean, people were so excited about what they saw that night. And I think excited not only because of what they saw that night, but because of what that night indicated was going to be happening for the next 1,000 years, perhaps.
The thing that pulsates in Song Lusitania, basically, I said, is its soul, its sense of caring, you know, its sense of want and its sense of need, you know, to break the shackles of imperialist oppression.
The play was such a tremendous success in this country that the NEC was invited to perform at the World Theater Festival in London the next year.
Diego